can you do start with the introduction? I think this is the time.
Okay. Okay, I will do. I think எப்பளும் 16th உங்கிறதுனால கொஞ்சம் லேட்டா பண்ணலான்னு இருந்தேன். Okay, I will start now. Okay, good evening everyone. And இத்தனை பேர் participants கரெக்டா சைனிங் பண்ணதுக்கு டைம்க்கு வந்ததுக்கு தேங்க்யூ. And this is Subradha. And இன்னைக்கு வந்துட்டு என்ன டாபிக்னா கிஃப்ட் கல்ச்சர். ஸோ கிஃப்ட் கல்ச்சர் பத்தி யாருக்கும் பெருசா ஐடியாஸ் இருக்காது. ஸோ அத பத்தி நம்மளுக்கு சொல்றதுக்காக தான் கௌஷிக் பிரணோ வந்திருக்காங்க. தேங்க்யூ கௌஷிக் பிரணோ ஃபார் ஆஃபரிங் திஸ் செஷன். அண்ட் ஸோ இப்போ வந்துட்டு நம்ம எப்பொழுதும் ரெக்கார்ட் பண்ணுவோம். அண்ட் அது இல்லாம இன்னைக்கு எஃபில லைவும் போட்டுட்டு இருக்காங்க. ஸோ தட் இதுல முடியலனாலும் அதுலயும் நீங்க கேட்சப் பண்ணிக்கலாம். அண்ட் ஐ வில் சாட் செக்ஷன்ல வந்துட்டு நான் உங்களுக்கு கொஞ்சம் இது போடுறேன். அதாவது அந்த குரூப்ல சில பேர் ஆல்ரெடி இருப்பீங்க. டெய்லி நாங்க செஷன் நடத்துறோம். இந்த செஷன்ல புதுசா வந்திருப்பீங்க பிகாஸ் ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் ஆஃப் ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் ரெஃபரல்ல அவங்க வந்து டெய்லி செஷன் என்னென்ன தெரியணும் அப்படிங்கிறது குரூப் லிங்க் வந்துட்டு இப்ப அனுப்புறேன். அந்த குரூப் லிங்கை கிளிக் பண்ணி யூ கேன் ஜாயின் இன் த குரூப். ஐ வில் போஸ்ட் தட். ஓகே, நான் சாட் செக்ஷன்ல போட்டேன். ஓகே,
sorry to interrupt. If you don't mind, if you can also share the same thing again in English, because there are other friends who seem to be not understanding Tamil.
Okay, no problems. Yeah, okay, sure.
You can either do it in both languages, or you can repeat yourself again in English also. So because they've been.
Subha, I think I can do it English. Can I do it?
Okay, no problems. If you can,
okay. Thank you, Subha. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to hear you have been here for around 8 minutes that you are still waiting for Kaushik session. It's really great to have you here, Kaushik, and you are from Kerala and you are living great, and I'm so happy about being in this session, and I'm just very curious about learning about gift culture. Hope everyone's so, and it's a great to have each and everyone who is being here, and I just want to explain and how this works and what is about Let's Talk, Let's Connect. So we see it as a literally I can say I see it as a learning platform where we can share our skills with each others, and where we can share our experience and even wisdom, knowledge, whatever we wish to share with people, we can share it here. And moreover we will get connected with people, and moreover like here if I'm a beginner, if I'm an experienced person, if I'm an expert, there is no difference in it. All are invited to share their skills and passions and whatever they wish to share with the people they are interested to, they can share it here. So this is a place where people can co-create with others. And if I'm a person, I just want to go for some like I'm learning a language, for example. I'm learning a language is called French. So I'm just learning step-by-step process. Can share my learnings to someone else here. So this kind of I'm learning, and also I'm also giving a space for others to learn. So that kind of platform, I see it as a platform that where we can co-create with each others. So give the session, hand over the session to Kaushik. Hope he can go rocket, and thank you, Kaushik. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. Am I audible? If you can, if in case my voice is not clear, and if you can hear me, please let me know. You can put a thumbs up on your screen so it helps me, or just message yes so I can see. All right. Sorry, I'm also using a phone for the first time, and I'm used to the touch aspect of it. So I'm also having a little bit of fun with it. Okay. Before we start, just wanted to share that I want to share whatever today's topic is about in English, because I feel that's the language that seems common to almost everybody who's here. But I also recognize that we are coming from different backgrounds, with different level of comfort with different languages. So English may or may not be of a certain comfort to you, especially the kind of the way I'm speaking. I might be fast. I might be using some words that you may not know or not be familiar with, or I might not be speaking clearly. If at all at any point you feel that you would like me to slow down or repeat what I have said, please do slow me down. You can just put up a a comment in the chat and say, can you please repeat that, or can you please slow down? And I'm happy to slow down and repeat anything that I'm sharing. So just wanted to check the language with everybody. I hope English is comfortable with everybody. And also, at any point, if you cannot hear me with the technological issues that might happen, please feel free to mention that as well on the chat. Okay. So before I begin, I thought I'll do something a little unorthodox and share a little bit about who I am not. And who I am not is an expert around gift culture or gift economy or alternative economies for that matter. I'm not an economist. I'm not a professional expert who is consulting for any major organization or governments. I am just somebody who has been exploring and experimenting with this idea ever since I've come across it. And all I'm trying to do today is to share some of that experiences, ideas, and just to see if this can move forward in some way and can reflect and bounce off of your experiences as well. Also, a little bit about myself and my journey, and at least the part that I think is relevant for today, is that many years ago, I grew up with pretty much the way I was told is the best way to grow up. Go to school, be a good student, earn a good name, and get good marks, and aim higher, aim for a good job, good university, good grades. This went on and on and on. And this kept going with a little bit of unrest inside of me, where things didn't seem to fall into place, because there are some things that I'm hearing about how life should be or what is good and what is bad. But somehow when I pay attention to life, somehow these things don't seem to be fitting into my reality or my experience of reality. So eventually it came to a point where I realized I really need to slow down and watch what's happening in my life. What am I really doing with my life? So it is that point I think a lot of things started changing for me, and then began a process of consciously inquiring what is it that I want to really unlearn. And over the past few years, different kinds and ways of unlearning has happened, by itself most of the time. But what I have made sure is that I set an intention consciously to really slow down and examine every aspect of my life. How am I with people? What kind of relationships I'm holding? What kind of food am I eating? What kind of work am I doing? What gives me joy? What gives me fulfillment? What gives meaning to my life? And in this way, one of the things that I've also been fortunate enough to examine and explore in this journey has been around my understanding of money. The economy part of it came later, but this has been a very valuable part of my journey in many ways. So a little bit, I think if I look back, maybe early 2012, 13, 14, around this time, I was working in a corporate office, and I was earning decently well. But when I really looked at my life up until that point, I was in my early 20s, and what I was really looking at that time was that in the last 25 years of whatever I had been exploring, I realized that a lot of my decisions has in some way been around money as one major factor. For example, I was in the same school as my mother, who was working as a teacher. In many ways, after 30 plus years, I'm still sitting here and healing from many of the things that happened because of this one factor, that I was a teacher's son, in the same school. But the reason that happened at that time was one of the reasons that happened is because my father was also like trying to work with my mother and see what is the safest option for me to go to a school, and also look at being a teacher's son has some kind of subsidy in the school fees that I'm paying. They were running a middle class family, and they were trying to work out their finances. So the very first step that I took into the process of learning was determined by money. And this went on when I finished my school and wanted to go to college. Many of my friends were talking about buying their seats into college. Those of you who especially are into engineering and medicine might know the story behind the whole business of the colleges and universities that's still going on, unfortunately. But it exists in many ways. So I had to fight for my merit, and then came in caste certificates and how they played a role. So it slowly unveiled to me that in many ways, money was playing a very crucial role in how I was making choices, in every day in life, whether I was taking an auto or an office bus, or the kind of person that I was even thinking about romantically involving with. I was constantly keeping this as a factor at the back of my head. And not to mention, my family had their own financial debts that also put pressure on me to not go and pursue the dreams that I really wanted to do. Not that my parents put pressure, but the situation was such that I had to really look at that debt, education loan and housing loan and other things that was there. And I was surrounded by these things that somehow made me feel like I didn't have many choices in life, and I felt sort of stuck. And when I really looked at my life, I realized one thing I was really suffering, about money was not that money was evil or anything, but because around money, something changed about how I experience life. Essentially, what happened is where I was working, there were times when I felt like something I worked really hard on, like really worked hard to create maybe some coding that I was doing, never went and became part of a website, and it stayed for 3 years, 4 years just in the dumps. And when I felt bad and said, you know what, I put my creativity into it, I put my heart into it, and I wanted to see this online, and why is this not happening? I remember one of my senior colleagues telling me, Kaushik, you're not here to get satisfaction and all. You did the coding and they paid you for it, no? And that's it. That's your job. You get paid and you do whatever the hell it is that they're asking you to do. If they're overworking you, you ask for extra pay, or you find another company that pays you better. And this was how, cut and dried things were, so dry in terms of not recognizing some of the things that were very valuable and important for me. And I noticed this was playing out in many things, whether I was going to a street vendor, or whether I was going to a mall, or whether I was trying to find new acquaintances in work. Every moment I was constantly thinking, and I saw people constantly thinking, oh, if I become friends with this person is connected to that person, and they can help me in some way someday in the future. And it became a very calculative game of chess like situation where everything was about, in a sense, a transaction. And why I'm sharing this is because one of the important things that broke for me when I tried to like get out of that space, when walk out of that space, was that I was sick of this transactional nature of how I was surrounded, the things that were surrounding me at that time, and the transactional nature that it had. And this is not just with my life. If I took a look at the larger game that was playing out, I saw that politicians only cared about the vote banks, and a lot of their decisions were all around these things. And I don't even need to get started about how, as a species, we've been exploiting our natural resources. I, for one, did an engineering which was around renewable energy and sustainability, and most of our work were about green buildings and green technology and green, all kinds of green stuff. But if we really look at it, what I learned to see was that there was an innate tendency in the way we were problem solving that did not take into account a certain simple reverence for the fact that my life is connected to the natural resources that I'm drawing from. And the way we were plundering the ideas, the so-called glorified innovations that I was part of, the projects that I was doing, it felt very heartless to me, because a lot of the times, the way in which nature was looked at was just that this is some resource that I have to make use of. Just the way people are making use of each other, and I was taught to make use of my work and my education. Everything became utility based and completely devoid of anything beyond that. So I feel, as I'm sitting here, even having this conversation on, a Zoom instead of, having a in-person, interactive conversation that I would like to do is also, I think, somewhere a consequence of, mindlessly plundering natural resources that have created a cascade of different issues, including global warming or whatever it is that you're looking at, including the COVID crisis. And I feel like right now, as I'm sitting here, this transactional attitude about life is still contributing to how this is not finding enough fulfillment for me. And well, when I stepped out, and then okay, this is a story I'll come back to later, but eventually I felt like I wanted to redesign my life the way I wanted to. So I broke free of everything, didn't worry about consequences, took a huge leap of faith, and took a risk, and just walked out of this lifestyle completely. But more on that story later. The reason why I was sharing about this whole strife that I was having with the transactional nature of things is because for me a lot about gift culture is around this fundamental shift that um, gift culture for me was one way in which I could move beyond experiencing just life as just a transaction and give more emphasis on relationships. Now, this might sound like an idea, in some way. It might look like some kind of a, philosophy or theory. But if you really look at this, let's just think about some of the things that may have happened, probably happened in your life. How many of you have probably had cousins or siblings or someone in the family who were elder to you? They were using some cloth or toys or books, and then when they were got old enough and those things were passed down to you or somebody else in your family. Has that happened? You can just type a yes or put a thumbs up in the chat section if that is true for you. Yeah. And these things also, if you have gone to the market, if you, I mean, I don't know the kind of markets that I used to go to, where these long streets full of markets and small vendors selling vegetables. When I go, I try to go to some of the same vendors over and over again, and there is a conversation beyond just like how much is this much and how is this and how is the price of that, what is the price of that. We have a conversation about the weather or about whether their kid has gone to school or what's happening with them. And then there is a certain understanding about they may probably talk about how the rains have failed and how things are not going well, or in the there's a certain human conversation that develops. And in the end, they casually say, you ask for 1 kilo, it's okay, chalo, take 50 grams extra, 100 grams extra. And this is not charity that they're doing. It is in a certain way, a way of saying, you know what, you're my clan, and I'm not going to, be very confused, or I'm not going to be very calculative about how this transaction is happening. There is still a transaction happening, right? He's not giving everything to me for free, or I'm not getting anything from her, I'm just giving money and walking away. There is a transaction, but the transaction is not merely a transaction. There is a larger element to it. There is a relationship that plays out. So what I'm trying to say is, for me, gift culture, at the heart of gift culture, what exists is this intention, is the spirit of prioritizing people over materials, prioritizing relationships over transactions, right? And in some ways, prioritizing a certain trust, more than a very calculated sense of suspicion. Oh, will this person come back again? Will they cheat me? Or this going to happen to me? Or if I vote for this person, will this person do this for me? Whatever level it is happening in, in some sense, I know even long-term relationships have become like this. That okay, I'll get married to you as long as you can, take care of the financial needs of my family, but I will let you work if this happens here. This kind of transactional things even exist with the so-called the most romantic of relationships and the long lifelong relationships that we sometimes come across. At least I have come across this. So at the heart of gift culture is this fundamental ability to be in touch with what is in my heart more valuable. That is, for me at least, it's human relationships and the human element of touch. In some sense, another outcome of this that I experience is that there is a certain sense of abundance in me. You know, how do I put this? You know, there's this simple story of a cloth that I read as a child in a storybook. The story follows a cloth that was once weaved for a king, right? To be wrapped around. It's a powerful cloth, and then the cloth is used for some time, and then the king sees a very rich emissary from another uh, country who visits and pleases him, and he feels very happy, and he says, "You know what? You have this. This is my gift to you." And then the emissary uses it for some time and then passes it down to his brother, and the brother passes it down to his son, and then it goes to a worker, and then the worker wears it, and then they gives it to somebody else. This is a very fictional story about how a cloth experiences ownership with different human beings. Okay, but I realized today, actually, I was just talking to my partner. She narrated a story that reminded me of that story because she was sharing her reality, and she was talking about how in her family there is first, a certain sister who might buy the cloth, and then it goes from her to her, sister, then to her cousin who happens to be her elder sister, and then it passes down to her. Then by the time it's handed down by, four people have used it, it must be probably 4 to 8 years. And as children grow older, larger, and it stops fitting, and then the cloth is passed onwards to maybe the servant person, and the person passes it down to their children, and then finally, even after the utility is breaking down, and I'm not saying this is how it should be, okay, but I'm saying this is how it can go. As it breaks down, then they try and use it for maybe a mopping cloth, a wiping cloth, and after that also it disintegrates further. Then they find different ways of using that. My partner today was telling me one of the last stages of using the cloth is to make little wicks to light lamps like this, to use them until the stage that they can get burnt into the ashes. And I know even from those ashes sometimes they make kajal and again apply. So if you look at the way this culture that we at least have in India is sometimes been about, has taken into account that the entire life cycle of something that we are looking at is utilized at every stage, right? And this is not because people were in poverty, people were all trying to make the most of everything. This did not come from wanting to use it to shreds. This came simply because of understanding that there is still some value left in it, and how do I make more, how do I engage with it more, how do I engage with it more, how do I engage with it more. And this not only brings creativity but also a certain respect for that cloth, that imagine that one cloth's life cycle extended over a 20-30 year period compared to the cloth that I sometimes wear, and I see that my friends are buying from the shops today. At least I've chosen to go move towards organics and cotton, but a lot of my family members also still wear cloth that are a lot of plastic in them. And if you look at it, it's the entire, this is just one aspect I'm talking about, clothing. But if you look at the larger aspect of it, it has become a use and throw culture, right? Now we are trying to make a little bit of changes here and there because, single-use plastics, we've seen the harm that it can cause. And at a different level, we are seeing the problems that this use and throw, economy has built in and effects it has had. I don't know if you know this, but there are countries like the US and in some European countries who literally fill up ships, huge cargo ships, full of their trash, like waste water bottles and other things that they are unable to dispose of. And there are countries here, like even India was part of it. I don't know what they're doing now, but they pay money. They receive money to have this dumped in their land. And this is the kind of policies that are being made by people we are electing. And I don't know how many of us are even aware of this, because the mindset of one side seems to be, and I'm not just making this between West and East or anything like that, but I'm saying there is a certain mindset to use, throw, use, throw, use, throw. In some sense, some people technically call this a linear economy, where everything just is used and then it disappears, right? But there is also a circular economy where I'm recycling, I'm reusing, and I'm constantly seeing how to make use of things in different creative ways until it can finally go back to the earth most of the time, but if not, at least back to the elements in some way, right? So this is something that was not taught or nobody studied it as a science, but it was just part of how it was part of the culture, at least to some extent. And I personally don't want to make this a theory because for me, my shift happened when I moved from my city bred life where I grew up with the same things. My idea of food is, go to a supermarket, pick up a Maggie packet, come home, 2 minutes Maggie, cut, empty the packet, throw it in the trash. That's all my window was, right? That's a linear way of looking at things. I don't care where it came from and I don't care where it's going. In fact, the office that I worked in just before I quit my work and everything was next to a huge dump yard in Chennai, which is the Pallikarnai marsh area, which was originally a marshland, which is still, I think some part of it is still surviving, thankfully. But marshlands, if you look at, is supposed to hold water like a sponge. They're very important parts of the ecosystem. But when I used to travel to office every day, I used to see kilometers and kilometers of just trash dumped everywhere. And it took me years of, education and everything didn't let me see that the Maggie packet that I threw in 2 minutes Maggie packet, that survives for at least 20 to 200 years, depending on how it's processed or not. So to even bring awareness about the kind of impact that I'm having, even in terms of that, gift culture is a very refreshing way for me to look at how do I keep things moving along, bringing back that circular economy more consciously into my everyday life. So I'll take a pause here because I also feel like, we've been talking a lot about concepts and theories, but I just wanted to slow down and go back to a story mode, because I was telling about me quitting my job and walking out. Just give me 1 second. I want to check what the time is. All right, it's 6:33. So when I quit my job, I had absolutely no plan. In fact, nobody in my office believed that I stepped out without a plan. And I had no other alternative job. I had no other, abroad degrees waiting for me or anything like that. And just decided this is not what I want in life. And this has always helped me. Even though I don't know what I really want or where I want to head, at least I want to be clear about what is it that I don't want and what is it that's not working for me. And this is how I worked through my life. So when I walked out, life was very interesting because it took me from a city bred, cosmopolitan cities where I grew up in, and most of my schooling and college was all, with a very diverse group of people in a very urban setting, with all the comforts and luxuries that I had known of. From there, I moved with my partner close to the Adivasi communities in southern India, especially Andhra Pradesh. And this was a huge shift for me because Adivasis are just people I've probably come across a couple of times in the movies, a very stereotyped version of them in the movies, maybe heard about them as in part of jokes. That's all my exposure was. But then my partner was at that time had already been working, for many years with many communities on the ground, and the stories that she used to tell me were just like, what the hell is all of this? And I don't even understand half things that she's talking to me about, and it looks too fantastical to be true, and it doesn't feel like something that's rooted in reality. So when I went there, one of the most amazing things that happened is that all we knew, or all I wanted to do at least, traveling with her, is that I knew that somewhere something is not right about my life, and I wanted to learn life from scratch. Like I said, the unlearning process was about examining every aspect of my life with a certain clarity. So I thought, who better to learn from than the Adivasis who are, living life at its most grassroots level. They're really connected to the earth. So when I went there, we had no plan in mind. We had no solution, no problem to fix, nothing, no product to offer, nothing. We just went there and said, hey, we would like to spend time with you and we want to learn from you because we value the kind of life that you're learning. And still, this is not part of my experience. This was just part of my partner's experience, and I was just, I trusted her and I was just with them. And what was surprising for me, which I had already known and experienced a little bit, but I was facing it head on here, is that a village which had never heard of us before, never even seen us before, just heard us talk and offered to embrace us as part of their community. and we became part of their festivals. There was a lovely elderly woman who gave us space in her hut to stay. We used to go there. We used to mingle with the kids, and slowly they started talking to us about what we can offer. We started, we started small ways in which we started playing games with kids. And no matter what I was doing with them, I realized there was so much for me to learn, because never once did I see a single shop in that village. There was never even a small shop to go and say, give me a packet of chips or a biscuit. But they were completely self-sufficient. And never once did they worry about, oh, I have to pay, I have to make lunch for 4 more people, 3 more people for these many days. How am I going to manage that? How am I going to figure this out? How am I going to figure that out? They are spending time in my house. Should I charge them? Never once did I even remotely feel that this was part of their thought process. And this was, very different for me in many ways. One, because this is a theory and I've like experienced it in small ways. Even if I've experienced it somewhere, when I travel to villages and towns, it was because somebody knew somebody in my family, or they somehow recognized me as somewhere they're part of their clan. That's why they were giving me certain, privileges. But this was completely out of the blue. Somebody is just trusting me and offering things that I never experienced. One thing I realized, one of my first unlearnings around gift culture was that I didn't know how to receive anything in life, because all my life I thought I will give this for people, I will take care of people, I will offer this program for people, I will share this knowledge with people. I was in this mode of giving, and it made me feel really good. I thought, oh, I was like this person with a lot of gifts to offer, and I've been giving things away. But then for the first time I realized I had never learned to receive. And this is not just, complicated things, even simple things. If somebody looks at me and says, hey, Kaushik, this dress is really good on you, and I go all shy because I don't know how to take a compliment. Simple things like compliments, And how will I receive the more important aspects of life? If somebody's showing me love, if somebody is saying, you know what, you relax, I'll take care of this, I'll go the extra stretch for you. For me, I had strong moral judgments, because if at all somebody is doing something for me, that means I've failed. And these are many stories that I told myself, that it's wrong to take, it is wrong to receive. If I'm receiving, I'm burdening others. In many ways, I was telling myself stories that I had carried from other people that was stopping me from even receiving what was being offered to me. And an interesting insight about giving and receiving that I have understood since then is that I have come to see this whole nonsense about giving and receiving as two separate things itself is a story that I tell myself. As I'm sitting here and talking to you, I can look outside the window and see that there are trees that are surrounding me. If they are not doing their job of breathing and photosynthesis, if they are not giving out the oxygen that I have to inhale, I won't be able to sit here alive, right? There is a transaction and a relationship that is there. If I want, I can look at it as a mere transaction, right? This giving and receiving is constantly happening. Because somebody is able to build houses around my neighborhood, I receive the sense of security in this house, right? So whether and some many things like this, if somebody is, just because somebody is willing to toil in the field and grow those plants, that's why I'm able to sit here and receive the food that I'm getting. Somebody is fighting somewhere, war for me somewhere. So whether I'm aware of it or not, I am always in a state of receiving. And am I not giving anything back? Of course. The breath I'm giving out, carbon dioxide, is food for the trees, right? In some sense. And I'm also contributing to the security of this neighborhood. So this giving and receiving is happening simultaneously. There is no such thing for me as giving is separate and receiving is separate. Because in every time I'm giving somebody, I'm receiving joy, fulfillment, gratification, connection, so many things in the process itself. And as I'm receiving, I'm offering other people a possibility to experience all of that. Maybe even get rid of some of their things, or spread their skill, or boost their confidence. There are many things that are happening that I'm simply unaware of. So one of the first things that broke for me is that this giving, receiving as two different entities just broke. Whether I am aware of it or not, it's just happening. And all I needed to do was just pay attention to how naturally things are happening in life. And with nature, it's very evident. If I watch, it's the connections are all there. But with my life, with all the nonsense and stupidity I've told myself, I have blocked myself from being in touch with this possibility. So there was one major unlearning that happened for me. So just wanted to share a couple of funny instances that happened when we were running a learning center. We were running an NGO at that time, because as we were working with Adivasi communities, they started understanding that we cannot be them, because I am coming at least from a very different, body build and way of life. I cannot do the things that they do the way they do. So we were trying to see how can we support each other mutually. So one of the things they requested us to, support with their kids' education, and we try to see how we can journey together instead of teaching them. How can we explore things together? So we ran a learning center, and eventually we started running an NGO, just to see, how we can keep meaningfully engaging and learning with community. So when I say NGO, some of you might know that NGOs means it needs funds and there are funders. So we had a very sensible, very close to us, at that time they were a group that was funding us. But what happened eventually was slowly the idea of funding became this, that I am offering you money, so you do what I say. And I realized that they were not living in the space that I was, and the kind of work that we were engaged with. They didn't even get a sense of the community that we were in and the realities that we were facing. But this power play began, where I pay money, you do what I say. And I realized it's the same thing that I was going through, in the corporate sector and other things that I had tried to walk out of. So we took a leap of faith again and said, you know what? You keep the money back. And we were a young organization at the time, and we returned back over 3 lakh rupees, just like that, and said, you know what? We were one of the only organizations I knew at the time who returned back funds, saying, you keep the money, because I don't want to work as on a transaction basis and put checklists. I will see how to offer the best of me. I want to be accountable, but that doesn't mean that I want to make this into a transaction than a relationship. So what we did was, we went around crowdfunding, telling people that this is what I want to do. This is my intention. You support. If you are able to give us 1 lakh in the end, I will create projects for 1 lakh. If you are able to give us 1 crore, I will not take it, because my capacity is not that much. But up till a certain point, depending on the money that you are giving us, we will do the best that we can do, and we will stay accountable in all these ways, step 1, step 2, step 3. And you won't believe, we ended up fundraising over like almost 5 lakhs. That was way more than the funding that we were receiving. And not because somebody threw lakhs of rupees at us. They were all individual people who contributed small amounts from their hard-earned money, because they built trust with us. And it's not that they are getting anything in return, but in the process, we built a rich relationship with the kind of people who are supporting us. And that was a very important way in which gift culture played out for me. I see that as part of gift culture, because it was important that neither them nor us were feeling contractual or obligated to do anything specifically because of this transaction that was happening. Even though it was about money, it still felt very gift cultured in my experience. And this has also happened when people had sponsored me for learning certain very crucial skills like permaculture and doing yoga and stuff, where the fee of the program was high, and I had to really go around and say, hey, this is close to my heart and I need support. And again, I had learned how to ask at that time. So I knew how to receive, and I bore down and received. None of those people have ever come back to me and asked, what have you done with it? How did you go? How are you after all these years? Are you still doing your practice? Are you still making money out of it? If you're making money, give me back. Nobody has ever asked, because it happened in a certain way that felt very enriching to my life. Today, in many ways, I am seeing how I can support other people in their journey of, in ways in which I can gift and do something within my capacity, even if that's like a few minutes of my time, or a few things that I have that I'm not using, or I feel somebody else needs more, or just in terms of money as well. That is also important, right? So once most of our stuff that we had collected with this little bit of money all got stolen away. One day we enter our house and everything is stolen, and we have no money left. Whatever little savings and other things I had put into the organization. Everything went overnight. Okay. And we were heartbroken, dejected, didn't know what to do. The only thing we had at that time was the trust of the people that had followed our work and knew the kind of work that we were engaged in. You won't believe it. Within 8 months, we started everything back from scratch. And it happened purely out of the generosity of people. And nobody gave a donation. People gave it. I mean, technically it was a donation, But I'm saying people gave it out of the goodness of their hearts, and these are not big sums, right? These are not just even money. In fact, when we were asking for support, there was a group in Delhi that went around collecting a lot of curtains, shawls, pillow covers, bed sheets, and sent us a huge packet of stuff that helped us rebuild our office, our homes. And even today, after many years, I still have some of them in my house, and I don't even, I never went back to them. I never had a conversation with them afterwards. It was just that one exchange, but it was so fulfilling because it happened a certain way. It happened from a certain space, and that is for me the core and the essence of what gift culture is all about. And as part of this, I have been, exploring many formats of this. There are various projects and people experimenting with this across the country. And as I started trusting, people and saying, okay, let's just put things out there and see how it feels. You won't believe the kind of exchanges that I've had, in my life, which because I couldn't believe it. I have had laptops gifted to me for the organization. We've had cameras come our way, DSLR cameras, and we've given away laptops, and I've given away a DSLR camera, which and there have been times when I've even wanted it and it never came back. I don't even know where it is right now. And it never, a laptop or a DSLR camera didn't feel much bigger than giving away, a handmade toy that I made. Because right now it was only about in what space I'm giving things, from what space I'm giving things in, and not about the worth of that stuff. It was more about the value of the good that I was exchanging with somebody, right? And the value of the gesture of giving that I was doing at that time. That felt so fulfilling, whether it was, a laptop or a camera, or whether it was a small pencil that I was giving somebody. So like this, we tried, different experiments over the next few years, because I consciously wanted to see how much can I push it, what all can it do. I've had gift circles where people come together and we all bring one little thing that we feel like gifting somebody, whether we need it or not, it doesn't matter. But I feel like, genuinely gifting it to somebody, and we exchange it with each other and see how that feels, and these are called gift circles that I've been able to facilitate. We did random experiments where we went to a park where, my partner was cleaning out her house because her parents had shifted. There were some old books, well, in good condition, okay, the precious books, and clothes and winter wear, which we did not need in the Andhra heat. So what we did at that time was we walked into a park, a public park, one of the evenings. We just put up a board and said, pick whatever you need. And then we started playing drums just to invite people. It was just a random experiment. And you won't believe, people came and hesitated to even pick up a book. They said, should I pay for this? This is for free. I said, this is not for free. This comes with all my love. You should take it. But take it if you want, it's yours. And you don't have to pay anything or do anything back. They said, should I register somewhere? Should I write something down? Should I write a note of thank you? Should I pose for a photo? We said, no, you just take it if you want it. Because right now, I don't want it right now. And I'm trusting that you will pass it on to somebody else. And you won't believe this, that the kind of fulfillment that I personally had, in times like those. I think for me, I learned to tear up for the first time without feeling pain or anger or insult. All that I had known was pain or sorrow or something, so-called negative things is what will make me cry until that time. But for the first time, I was tearing up because of beauty, because of the joy, because of things that I couldn't explain put in words. And these were not even things that I had expected. And I never did this because I wanted to feel this way. So in experimenting like this, I found that there are many, many possibilities and endless creative ways to going about engaging with gift culture. And as I was traveling, I also had, come across many projects that are going on. There were cafes that people were really running successfully, where each person paid for the next person who's going to eat. So you don't know how much the bill is, but you're just paying from your heart. And I might have eaten for $50, but I might pay $150, or I might have eaten for $400 and then just pay $100. Whatever it is at that point that I can do, I do. And this model somehow worked. And there are people, and I think there's one in Gujarat. I don't know if there are people here from some of the projects who are familiar with such projects here in the group also. But these models, they have shown that it can work. It's just trusting the goodness of people. I don't want to use the word goodness because this gets distorted in so many ways. but just trusting people, that if they come from the space of their heart, there's something really valuable and human about us that we can get in touch with, and create together. And that's another wonderful thing that we have to create. This can only happen if we get together. One person, one group cannot sit together and create anything, but they can make the first step of change, right? But there are some amazing, amazing groups. There have been thrift stores there is one thrift store in Delhi that somebody is running, where you go and pass on something that you've read, and somebody else picks it up and they bring it back, like a pay, like lend it forward library, rotational library sort of thing. But they do it with more than just books. They move things forward, they rotate a lot of things other than these things. There have been also stores that are running. There have been many such examples. People have been having walls in their cafe where people can come and leave a gift that they have. And what's important that I've recognized is that these exchanges need not be just material. They need not be about something or object that I'm giving. One thing I've enjoyed experimenting with is looking at what gift do I have. To even ask myself that question has been very valuable. What can I offer? Okay, I don't have money. There have been days that I've actually gone to bed with just some chai and biscuits because I don't have money for dinner that day, right? And these have been part of my experiences as much as maybe today when I'm doing much better. But in the process of all of that, when I ask myself, what is it that I can, I want to participate in this economy or in this culture, and how do I build this? And that eventually made me ask this question: what do I have with me? And you won't believe me, I realized that I can do a lot of things. I can write some few lines of poetry. And not that I'm saying that I'm a great poet and I'm so amazing, I'm this, I'm that. But just to say that I can do this from my heart. I can do this, lovingly. I can do this with a lot of joy in my heart and offer it to somebody. When I realized that I could do this, one, I recognized that I can do a lot of things that I had never acknowledged before. Two, the way I could do this, the experience of writing a poem for myself, or so that I can get likes on Facebook, and just writing a poem so I can gift it to somebody as a gift unexpectedly for their birthday or whatever it is. The experience of it was a world apart. And the fulfillment that it gave me was way, way different from what I had ever known. And in many ways, I've also been experimenting with seeing how we can do these skill exchanges. And this can also be a service. Somebody is going to office and they're saying, hey, I have 3 seats in my car. Anybody else wants to join me and I can just drop you guys, right? Now, so don't do it in COVID situation. But I'm just saying, there are other things like somebody is clearing their house and moving out. Then I can take some time off and say, hey, I'm happy to donate my time, or like offer my time. Sorry about this. I know the donate word came from another context. I am happy to offer the time and I can help you move out. And I know it will be extremely valuable for me because I hate moving out from home and setting things up. It's a lot of work and management for me. And there has also been one experiment that I remember called the time bank, where people are using time as a currency of exchange. But again, given from the heart, it's not exactly 5 minutes for 5 minutes, but it's just how much I want to give. And in that context, the word donation came out. But it also reminded me of the time bank. I think Kochi has a time bank, and there is also other time bank experiments that are happening across the world. So one last experiment I'll share before moving on is there was this few talks sessions that I was holding called Let's Talk Money, because I realized the culture that I come from, or at least in my understanding, money has become very made an evil thing in a lot of people's mind. Money is so bad, money is so evil. Oh, if money comes into life, everything will go. Oh, that person has a lot of money. Oh, this person is bad because they're too rich. This kind of stuff, what it really did to me was it really stopped me having a healthy relationship with money itself, to know what is its place in my life and what is it not. So I had a series of, like small sessions called Let's Talk Money. And we were trying to understand what are these stories that we have about money. So I thought one thing that you could also try at some point, today or in the next few days, is to slow down and ask yourself, what are some of the, ideas that you have about money, and where are these ideas coming from? Who put this in our head, and how is that playing out in our life, and how has it affected us, right? And that's an interesting thing to just slow down and pay attention to. So I thought I'll just mention that. I'll do a quick time check because I don't want to exceed time. Okay, 6:55. I'll take another 10, maximum 15 minutes, and then we'll go into Q&A. So what is gift culture? I didn't prepare the whiteboard for this. This is usually my workspace, so there's a whiteboard. but I just thought I'll quickly write some characteristics that help me identify gift culture. And this is in my experience, okay? And I'm not saying this is a dictionary definition or this is what it should be and shouldn't be, but I think gift culture for me, in my experiential understanding, has been about relationships, people, value, abundance. Even when I don't have any money, this is true in my life. When I've had no money at all, um, the kind of people that I had in my life, the kind of support that they offered, I have never felt richer in my life. And this has happened very recently in 2018-19, in the last year or two. I have a lot of major changes happened. I moved from Rajasthan back to the south. I wanted to get married a certain way, and also wanted to, move to a certain way of life and move to a different, certain space and live a certain way. And for all of this, I had not a penny in my hand, no savings. Okay, and I'm still paying. My education loan is still being dealt with. Okay, and interestingly, talking about my education loan still exists. And I'm not going to be ashamed to say this, my dad is still paying this, right? And what I have managed in this time is, one, to learn to receive that and say thank you, because it did not happen because he's supporting me because I'm his useless son he has to support. Nor am I doing this because it's because of you that I did engineering. You have to take care of your nonsense. Why should I help? I'm going off and doing my own shit. That's not how it happened. Over the years, we built a relationship that could have not been possible had I went the other way, my corporate job, moving abroad and doing the things that I wanted to do. I built a relationship where we could talk to each other about most difficult things. Even if it's not through words, we understood each other. He understands the kind of life that I really want to live. And I'm telling you, after almost a decade, now I know that I can offer my parents the kind of lifestyle, the kind of relationships, the kind of, health and the kind of experience of a certain relationship that they long for. And that is a certain exchange that's happening between us. And there are times when I sometimes feel very critical and feel like, oh my god, I should be supporting. Why the hell can't I still can't make enough money to pay back my loans, and my parents are still taking care of it, and they're not doing that well either, so they're also in deep debt. One thing I've learned from my parents as well, and with my partner journeying through these years, is that somehow another story I told myself is, money is one of the ways I can be happy. And I'm not trying to put a philosophy here. I'm just saying money is one common construct that we are using for multiple exchanges, right? Whether I have to buy a car, I need money, home, I need money, different, a job or a college seat, I need money. This is the kind of world we have unfortunately created. Because we made this a common currency, it has become somewhat of a overpowering influence in my life. And somewhere I think if I have enough money, I'll have access to all of this. But one counterintuitive thing that I've come to see is that it is possible to live a deeply fulfilling life. Not that I don't have money, but by not prioritizing money as the highest. Money is still important. I'm still having to pay the rent here. I'm still trying to support myself, trying to use money in transaction with the world. It's not that money is completely out of the picture, but it doesn't have the grip over me that it used to have, or I have learned to slip away from it, where I am holding it where it needs to be and it is not holding me in its grip. And that's one major shift that has also happened because of the gift economy. And I'm not trying to say that gift economy is the solution for money evil. This is not the takeaway I want you to have today, but we will come back to that later. And in the context of that, I also wanted to say there are challenges. It's not that everything is going to be a cakewalk. One thing I've learned is people have come to me and asked, what is this? You don't have money, or you're not even earning. People of your qualification, your age, the kind of exposure that you have, the kind of college you went to, the kind of publications I have with my research papers and other things. People are earning in lakhs per month. What the hell are you doing? You're telling me you're struggling to pay your next month. This is how I've been going. And my partner and I, we don't know where the next month's money is going to come. Rent's money is going to come, but somehow it comes. And after, I think, almost 6-7 years, I've learned to be comfortable with that uncertainty that it'll come. And for the first time, when I walked into, I forgot to tell you this, when I walked into that Adivasi village, with my partner Shruti. I told her, you know what, we have this much money, this will last us for this much long, and we have to somehow get this registered, and then we have to start fundraising, we have to do this, we have to do that. She just looked at me and said, you know what, Kaushik, you just do what you learn, what you're here for, you want to learn, you do this thing, money will come. And I swear I thought she was a fool at that time. And I thought, what the hell, this is all bakwa, she just learned it from somewhere, some philosophy she's throwing at me. But you won't believe the kind of miracles that have happened in my life, that the right amount of money, now, not more, not less, but somehow it will find its way. And I'm not saying you stop trying and look for money to find its way to you, but I'm saying these are things that I had never thought were possible. And I'm just sharing this as somebody who has been hit by a reality that I have not thought possible, not imagined possible. And that's why I feel whenever it is about even trying out gift economy or gift culture for that matter, I don't want to do it because I want this outcome, because something that I cannot imagine possible might be waiting there for me. And I hope if you're trying to explore gift culture in your own way, that you will also try and approach this way, that you don't think about the outcome, but just go with it with an open mind and see what is out there. There will be challenges. Like my friends told me, oh, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? You can't do, I can't go to a star hotel. I can't, drive a Mercedes or a BMW and all that stuff that some of my friends seem to be doing. But I know that if I list down all the things that are, I'm struggling with, and the sorrows and joys of life, they have their own bunch of sorrows. They might be driving a BMW car, but they have 6 meetings where they don't even have time for eating food or spending time with a loved one. And I know some friends of mine have come to this unfortunate circumstance where they are having to allocate 1 hour a day where they will not touch gadgets. They will allocate another hour a day where they have to spend time with their parents, because quality time needs to be spent with that 1 hour only. That means what? They've made a contract. Okay, from 9 to 10 is your time. 8 to 9 is not your time. This becomes a very painful way of living. And I'm not judging it. I'm saying it's a very painful way of living. Because if that 1 hour goes amiss for a few days, then the relationship slowly withers away. And for me, what enriches me in my life has been the quality of life and not the kind of things that I've amassed, at least for me so far. Okay. And again, not trying to build a philosophy here. So why I've been mentioning not building philosophies and all that stuff is because I just wanted to share today, if at all there is a takeaway, whatever it is that I don't believe in takeaways, because I feel it's another utility based thing, that I come to a session even thinking, okay, I will take away these things with me, but there might be more things in that session that I might never imagine possible, but I'll miss out on all that because I'm constantly looking for those takeaways. So I'm not really giving this as a takeaway, but if at all that is something that I would like for you, to stay with all of you as you're leaving the session today, is at least in terms of my understanding of what is not gift culture. Because with anything in life, with relationships or a learning or a teaching or my own way of looking at life, I can choose to make it into a misery if I don't apply it in the right context. If I don't apply it with the right wisdom and right insight, I might turn anything into a source of misery in my life. So gift culture can also become a miserable experience if it is misinterpreted or interpreted a different way. And I'm not saying this is the textbook definition, but I'm saying for me, looking at gift culture a certain way enhances my life, the beauty of my experience of life so much, but in other ways can really become a painful experience. And I just wanted to share that as some of the things that I would say what is not gift culture for me. Okay. I don't know if this is coming properly or is it inverted. It's looking inverted in my camera, but I'll anyway read it out. So one of the things gift culture is not, it is not a fix-all. It is not a one-stop solution that's going to come in and change the world, where everybody tomorrow is going to become, oh, I'm doing this from my heart. Oh, you're doing this from your heart. There's no money. We're all free. I am not saying this dream is bad. It's a beautiful world that we can move towards. But I don't look at it as a complete replacement for the existing systems overnight. It might happen. What has worked for me is in small ways I'm trying to supplement and complement the kind of economic system that I'm part of. I am still part of an economic system where I still have to pay the rent. I can't go to my owner, landlord, and say, this month I feel like paying only this much, half the amount. It's not going to work. So I am still part of a system, but even in that system, I can still build the value of relationships. So with my landlord and people who are giving us the house, we still have a relationship. We're still talking. We're still having a connection. He's still part of, I don't know if he's watching this, but he's still part of my social media groups, and he's been like, we're chatting. These things are happening because these need not happen. But if it happens, it's beautiful. Even if there is a transaction involved in it, like the vegetable vendor, even if there is a transaction involved in it, if you add another layer of relationship or humanity or trust, whatever, abundance, whatever you want to call it, if there is another layer to it, then that makes the experience of doing that more worthwhile. So it's definitely not a fix-all solution. Don't look at it as a savior solution, and it's definitely doesn't work when I have moral judgments about what should be gift culture and not. I've had people come to me and out of the blue tell me, Kaushik, you can afford, see, people like us can afford to give away 2 of these kurtas, but you see there are people out there who cannot even afford that. You know why? We shouldn't hold on too much. I couldn't tell that person that I only had 3 kurtas in my life at that time, because most of mine had torn away, or I decided not to buy new things and contribute to whatever it is that I wanted to experiment with. I only had 3 kurtas, but this person came from a complete assumption, and this often happens when I start thinking any kind of moral judgment. Why is that person not giving away? Oh, they look rich. Why can't they give this away? Oh, this person spoke so much, but they are using this phone. Why should they not give that away? There are a lot of moral judgments like this, including judgments around money, right? In fact, I was doing a little research for a workshop that I was doing, and I saw that in the last almost 40, 50 years of Tamil cinema, almost 70 to 80% of the rich people are evil. Okay, and it's very conveniently made evil because money is evil. And not once am I willing to slow down and see that money has no characteristic on its own. If I let it get to my head, it becomes evil. That's the same thing people are doing with technology today. Phones are evil, technology is evil, nothing is evil for me at least. If I know how to handle it the way it needs to be handled, if I have a certain amount of control over myself, then it can be a wonderful tool, isn't it? In fact, with my friends, I keep saying, if money comes your way, keep it. It's important because you can gift it in multiple ways to many people. It can enable me to gift more. So, and it's important for me to understand that not to be lost in moral judgments like this, which can really hinder my experience as well as other people's experience, be a pain for others as well as myself. And I suddenly wonder, why am I doing so much gift culture participation and I'm still not feeling fulfilled? Probably because this is playing out, and this is playing out in subtle ways, not very explicit. Even if I think that, oh, I know, I understand my moral judgments, it might still play out in some way. Simple way to recognize this is, if I think something is right and another thing is wrong, absolutely wrong, because it shouldn't be that way, without understanding the context of significance, then probably you're stuck in a moral space. I'll quickly finish the last two. It's definitely not charity, and I really have struggled with it. I don't think charity is something that I equate with gift culture. I don't give because I have more, somebody has less. I don't give because I'm not using it, so you keep it. It might happen that way. I might happen to have more. I might happen to have something that I'm not using, and it's definitely something that I can give away. It makes logical sense. But charity for me essentially happens this way: one hand is giving, the other hand is receiving. If it goes back to the giving receiving construct, as soon as I enter into that mindset, I start thinking I am giving, so my hand is above and somebody is like this. One of the most painful things that have happened to me in my life is going to rural places and meeting farmers who see us the way we are dressed. Even if I'm dressed, with kurta and dhoti, they come to me and ask for money. They don't know anything. First thing, they come to me and ask for money. And in my understanding, they feed the entire world, and they should be the richest people in this world. I'm not saying they should experience richness. I'm saying we should have made them the richest people in the world as a society. Unfortunately, we've made them this way, because this is what we have done with this understanding of giving and receiving and benevolence and charity, because the government goes to these people with the programs of, oh, I'm giving you this, I'm giving you loan, I'm giving you microfinancing, as if it's something that they are giving from their pocket. It's people's money, right? So in many ways, this kind of distortion can create serious problems, not just for you, but especially for people you're supporting, because it creates unnecessary separation, and one person becomes up and one person becomes down. I am not for that kind of gift culture. I want to look at the people as a spectrum. Different people are in different phases in their journey. There was a day I didn't have money for food. Today I have money for three meals. So I will eat well and I'll support somebody who doesn't have money for food, knowing that tomorrow I can be there and somebody hopefully will, pay back for me. That's all. And that is for me moving through the spectrum. And it doesn't mean that I am on top and somebody is on the bottom. And this is something, again, I just wanted to emphasize, because even minimalism and a lot of things like this is being distorted into thinking that, oh, I have too much, I should give it away. This is essentially happening because people have lost context in which this was even brought up in the first place. In the West, in a certain context, it makes sense. But without contextualizing it, if I simply take it and apply it however I want, in the same way in my reality, there are a lot of people who can't think in these terms, especially in a country like this with different classes. It's a diverse country with different people and different backgrounds, right? Economic situations, caste realities, class realities. It is not easy to bring one idea like this and throw it on everybody. It is not fair also, I would say. So it's important to contextualize it before I bring some idea down in making it a reality for me. This is not to judge charity, but I'm saying gift culture, it's best if it doesn't happen with the mindset of charity itself. And lastly, my sincere request is, please don't make this into a philosophy. This is not something to go be preached and said, oh, we should all experience life like this. Oh, transaction should be down, and again, relationship should be up. Scarcity should be down, and abundance should be up. This up and down business will create nothing but misery. At least this is true for me in my life. I don't know how you'll come out of this or how you'll pay attention to this. But part of my work, other sessions that I've been doing is just about this, just bringing awareness to recognize when am I turning a blessing into a curse for myself. And that's the kind of work that I'm doing. Anyway, that is a different story altogether. But I would invite you to not move into these, but really look at it for what it can bring. It can bring fulfillment, it can bring joy, it can bring connection, it can bring abundance, it can bring an enormous possibility of experiencing life in ways that I have never imagined possible, right? And that's what gift culture means for me. I will just share one last thing and then we'll go for Q&A, and it's going to be super short. One initiative that I came up with, tried to experiment with, is called Anbudan, which was supposed to be a contextual, project initiative that I started with in Tamil Nadu. Anbudan basically means with love, and love, Anbu in Tamil is not necessarily romantic love. It is a certain form of, it's somewhere between compassion and love, and it's very difficult to put that in an English word, but it's essentially a very identity-less love. I'm not loving because this person is an opposite sex or the same sex. I'm not loving because this person is blood related to me. It is not. It doesn't have a discretionary ability. It's just love. And this is a project that I was trying to run. The intention of the project is also important because I'm trying to request this also from all of you, that contextualize. See how can you take the spirit of gift culture. There is no definition. I don't want to give any guidebook around this, but how can I take this spirit of gift culture and create an environment in my family, in my workspace, in my apartment, in my neighborhood, in this world that I'm part of, in my clan or community? How can I make this happen for myself? And if you think in those terms, I feel like for me, it has brought in a lot of creativity, a lot of innovation. And that's how I think it makes most sense, because this is something that we are doing together. It needs the support of people. It needs to work. If it doesn't work, if I simply remind that this is a philosophy that needs to be followed, it won't stay, it won't last for long. If it has to work, it has to be in the right context, in a way that works for people who are doing it. So it's important to pay attention to where you are, whom are you applying this for, and what is the most sensible way to apply it here. And that's the final request I have from all of you, that I go on, experiment bravely and see what is gift culture for you. Don't go back to Googling gift culture and trying to figure out what other people have done, but to see what does it mean to you? How do you want to go into this, and how do you want to explore this? As a part of this, one thing I also wanted to thank Amazing Human Being team for inviting me for this call, because it also reminded me that I can do more and I want to do more, and I got in touch with that. So as part of this, I've been thinking about starting a monthly online gift circle. It will be in the virtual space, but we will try and see, depending on the COVID situation, how we can exchange our gifts with each other, whether it is something that we made or it's some material that we can send each other, or if it's just gifts of skills and other gifts that we have, intangible gifts that we can give each other and nourish a space together. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to Kaushiek Pranoo is my handle on all the social media, uh, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And also you can find Unlearning Ashram. So if you can just reach out and stay connected when we are putting out events like these, you can just experience it for yourself also and see how you want to interpret this in your way. In case you're starting right now, in case you're already experimenting and experiencing this, please do share your ideas. I would love to learn from your journey as well. And finally, I just wanted to share. I just want to take 10 seconds and take a pause to acknowledge that in whatever format gift culture has happened through generations or is happening or can happen for all of us, it can only happen because people are willing to put their hearts into it. Yes. So because there have been people who have taken the risk, they have tried things, they have created things, they have been willing to experiment with the unknown. Only because of that, I got to know that this is even a possibility. And I just want to take a moment and just bow down to all these people and sincerely be great. I mean, I wanted to share my gratitude for each and every person who is in their own way, knowingly, unknowingly, consciously, unconsciously, created this possibility and has kept this alive through the generations. So I will end with this and open up for questions if there is still time. But before we open up for questions, just wanted to take a couple of seconds of silence, and then I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you. Yes, please, questions or sharings also. It need not be questions.
One quick question is that comes for me right now. Is there any research or any experience that you have went through the current economical system or anything that bothered you or anything that you have researched into? Wanted to understand how far you went through the current economic system relating with the gift culture.
See, it depends on what research is for you. For me, research is being able to see the situation with certain clarity, right? And I've been trained in school that I should find the right textbook, right author who has the expertise. This has happened for my exams also. Should get local author book, should get foreign author book. You study from this author, you get good marks. You get from this author. At one point, I realized, at least for me, one thing I realized is, it's not that I'm against books or anything. It's just that I realized I've constantly settled for second-hand and third-hand knowledge, right? I'm learning to see through somebody's eyes, and that's how I've experienced life, even if it's an economist. And I do want to acknowledge that there is a limited amount of life, energy, and time that we all have. Different people are investing it in different directions. There are people who have invested in just understanding economics, right? And it's valuable to understand what they have seen too. But what I'm saying is that need not come at the cost of me losing my ability to pay attention to what's around me. Whatever I have talked is not economic models or theories. I don't know anything about those. I can't name even one single theory. My mother was an economics teacher at one time, but I know nothing. But I am able to pay attention to how is this packet of Maggie that I'm eating today really impacting the environment, no? Because if my idea of food is supermarket to the toilet flush, that means I have given up on my ability or my intelligence to really follow the cycle and understand what's happening. In my second standard, they told me water cycle, oxygen cycle, the food cycle, and all that stuff. It's still a picture in my head. But if I open my eyes, It's there, it's happening right now. But I'm not able to see it because one thing I've compromised. And why I'm saying this is, it is not against reading books or doing research from the internet and stuff like that. But I think the more important and valuable experience for me is to start from where I am. What is it that's around me? How can I look at that deeper? And how can I bring more awareness and attention to that? Of course, eventually a certain framework or somebody's tool or some theory might then encapsulate it better, and then it might give better clarity. But as of now, I am sticking to just my experience of what I'm seeing. And I see that there is still a lot more to see. That I'm still not aware of what the COVID is doing to this shopkeeper right outside my house, and how me only buying from him is what it's doing to the fruit seller who is 2 kilometers away, whom I used to buy from every day, and the hotel that I used to go to once a while. So this is my economics, and I think there is a lot of value in this because this is real. This is happening right now, and then I would love to explore that also to complement that.
Thank you. I wanted to understand what are the things that helped you to see yourself better.
There is a introductory talk called "Listen, Breathe, and See" that I am offering tomorrow morning at 10:45 to 12 during the solar eclipse. You should probably, if any of you have an interest in seeing deeper, in seeing, developing, enhancing your ability to paying attention to things, because see, I don't put anything under my name. I don't want to call myself a facilitator. I don't want to call myself a researcher or economist or whatever. I went for 4 years to an engineering college, but I still hesitate to put engineer. I play music every day. I won't call myself a musician because I feel like what I really have come to know is just that I don't know much, and I don't know a lot, whatever it is. And all because of that, only thing I've learned is to sharpen my ability to see things with a little more clarity. So for that, I've learned to find tips and tricks and tools and methods that have helped me. I still don't know if it will help everybody. But what I'm doing as a way of life, all my offerings, all my work has become about this, that this is what I think is most needed. And this is something I think the education system does not invest at all, because education has become another business in the economic system, right? I have to pay money, and then my child has to show me 2 homework notebooks, 3 textbooks, and show 97 out of 100 because he's going for or she's going for 2 tuitions. That's the kind of energy that with which even my parents raised me, because that's what everybody else was doing. And I think it's important to break that and really ask myself, what have I missed out on all these years? Is to be able to really bring up my own intelligence and awareness. One of the things that I realized is, I don't know how many of you know Michael Faraday, who invented who discovered the electromagnetic phenomenon, which led to motors and generators. In fact, everything about this session that's happening, the light that's happening, running in my room, the generator that's running, the fan that's spinning, everything to some sense is attributed to him, right? He began this journey, and he was a bookbinder, right? And the kind of observation he made was a breakthrough in society for generations to come. But I realized after I finished my engineering, all that I needed was 6th standard physics and science to see what he saw. But I had a degree, I had a big university degree with big GPA, I was applying for abroad university, but I didn't know how to apply 6th standard science and math. Then what use am I accumulating things for? So this is a shift I think needs to happen, like the gift culture is also playing out. I think this is a fundamental shift that needs to happen, that what is my innate capability? I need to know, because when I buy a phone, I want to know all the tricks that is there in the phone. But I am sitting with this for all my life, but I don't know how to make use of it, how to really use it to experience life better. That's my truth.
Thank you, Kaushik. Thank you so much.
Hi, Karthik. Prashant here.
Hello.
Guys,
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Whoever is speaking, can you please say your name and then start?
Yeah, I'm Prashant. Am I audible?
Hello, Prashant. Yes, Prashant.
Yeah. Yeah. Kaushik, I'm happy that I'm somewhere in the space, in your mental space. Currently, I'm in an unlearning journey. so I can connect many of things with you. And journaling helped me a lot to unlearn, and even the COVID helped me to stick with the relationship as a huge uh, anchor point, which made me realize relationship to be huge. And again, I had most of the questions has been answered from my journal itself. So most of the questions from me, and the answers, beautiful answers, I got it from me. But still I had two questions what I was pondering, and I hope you could give me the answers. So books, I have I was a voracious reader, and I just completely thought books never helped me to grow or whatever. Even to form a habit, books never helped me. So I was wondering what to do with these books. I have a bookshelf which is the most unused now. So this question was the current what I was pondering. So since you are in the journey, I thought to ask it to you. So yes, please.
I
So
think it would
what I
be a
thought
fun
was it never
experiment
helped me.
to try out.
So gifting it again, it might not help them. So why should I gift? So that was the thought process in me. So could you please help me?
See, all I know is uh, my experience of giving is about just giving. That's all. No, I don't know how many of you might be familiar with the story. I might even be saying this wrong, but there's a very quick little story. I'll take just a minute to share this. I don't even remember the exact story, so but I just share what I remember. Arjuna from Mahabharata. I've never read the Mahabharata properly, but I'm going to just say the story because it's very close to my heart. Arjuna goes to Krishna once and apparently says, "Why is everybody praising Karna as the ultimate giver? You know, I also do charity. I also give away a lot of things. You know, and why is he getting all the praise and glory? People are saying he will live immortal in the minds of people for generations to come because of his dhan, the way he can just give. Why can't I? Why is this? This is not fair. Because in Arjuna's mind, my guess is that he's thinking that fellow is from the opposite community, is the wrong person, he's a bad person. You know, moral judgments we saw. So he has his own moral judgments about Karna, and he says this is not fair. I should also get equal credit. So apparently Krishna, I don't know the details properly, but I'll say this. Krishna apparently gives him a huge pile of gold and says, distribute this, give this away. So Arjuna goes back and says, of course. And then he finds, he sends out emissaries, finds out the people in his community and land who are in most need of this, and distributes it evenly across all these people. He said, come with me. And they both go in disguise towards Karna. And he offers the same pile of gold and says, Karna, I came across this pile of gold. I've heard that you are the, big giver. So I came and wanted to give this to you. And as this is happening, a poor man enters Karna's, courtyard and asks, say, can you please help me? Karna says, of course. And he takes the entire gold and gives it away to that man. Arjuna is shocked. It's like, what the hell? This man gave everything away without asking question. And Krishna says, this is why he is the ultimate giver. Because for me, giving is not about where it's going, is it helpful or not. I am giving because it is my turn to pass it forward. There was a time that you also read books, no? And it was a part of the process that has brought you towards seeing in your journey right now that books are not relevant for you. I'm not saying books will never be relevant for you. Maybe again you might crave to read books at some point. But right now in your journey, you feel like passing it on. Maybe it will hit somebody in another phase in their journey. Maybe they're in one other side of the spectrum or in another side of the spectrum. You don't know where they are. But the idea is, when you're giving, can you give it in such a way that it can make your life feel fulfilled? And that's all that matters. There is an ancient Buddhist tradition like this. I don't know how true this is, but as somebody takes up samana, as they become, a monk. In those days, it was just monks. Okay, now they have nuns and all. So if they become monks, one of the things that they do is they keep all their possessions in a horse cart or bullock cart, and they're going across the village. And as they go across the village, they just throw their stuff one by one onto the road, and different people come and pick it up. And one thing that they used to say around this is that it is your karma to give it up. It is somebody else's karma to pick it up. And I'm not going to karma and all, but I'm just saying it's about what is important for me at this point in my life. Where it will go, how it will make sense to somebody is not in my hands. And that's very important also as part of the giving. As you give, you are receiving something else. And it's important you pay attention to that end. At least that's how it works for me. And just try it out and see how this feels for you. Maybe you'll find another meaningful way to do it.
Smiles hearing the answer. And I had one more question. Were you into journaling or writing? Did writing help you in decluttering or in your unlearning journey?
For me, I don't know. There have been points where it has helped, but one thing I've tried to do is, not to look at the tool but the context more. So depending on the context, a tool might be really effective. But if I start looking at a tool for as a solution, then for me it starts going back into this tool is better than that tool, and then this is going to solve all my problems. I get into stories like that. So I look at the situation. There have been times when I felt like writing down is really needed. That's the time I write things down. But most of the time, I think it's not been required for me. Thank you, Prashant. Just taking the time. I just wanted to make sure we are not taking too. Yeah.
Okay,
7:32.
well, yeah. Guys, I just want to make one question. Kaushik, do you have a time to answer it?
May I know who this is? Sorry. Divakar.
Yeah, this is Divakar. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't see
Right
it.
now, I'm in office. Sorry, I just.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, before you ask
Uh,
Divakar, I just to honor those who want to leave at 7:30. Thank you everyone for taking the time and being here. In case you're leaving at 7:30, otherwise I'm sure they have a closing. But thank you everyone for taking the time. This is my first sort of live conversation that's happening, and I'm really happy that it is happening around something so close to the heart, and that it can happen in this format. So I just want to thank the Amazing Human Being group and each of you for taking time and being sitting through my sharing. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you at some point in different offerings. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Devang.
yeah, my question is so simple. Like when I was receiving a gifts, I was not able to accept it on the some days. ஸோ தமிழில் சொல்லணும் அப்படின்னா எனக்கு கிஃப்ட்ஸ் வந்து என்னோட ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் ஆர் ஃபேமிலி யாராவது கொடுக்கும்போது தெரிஞ்சவங்களோ இல்லை இப்போதான் பழகிருக்கவங்களோ அவங்க கிஃப்ட்ஸ் கொடுக்கும்போது என்னால் ரிசீவே பண்ண முடியல. ஸோ ஐ திங்க் வி ஹேட் அ கான்வர்சேஷன், இதுக்கு முன்னாடி நம்ம இது பேசியிருக்கோம்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஸோ யூ மேட் இட் அஸ் டிரான்சாக்ஷன் பற்றி பேசியிருந்தீங்க. ஸோ வென் இட் இஸ் வாஸ் டிஸ்கஸ்ட் அபவுட் டிரான்சாக்ஷன், ஐ ஏபிள் டு திங்க் வை இட் இஸ் டு பி அ டிரான்சாக்ஷன். ஸோ ஐ ஸ்டார்டட் அக்செப்டிங் இட். Now it was okay and I can accept the gifts and I can able to manage it. But still, in the end of my mind, in the last corner of where in my it's showing still questioning me. They are giving something to you, so you should respect. You should give them something. You should show them something, either love or something. So still we can say it is a transaction, but I couldn't get rid of it completely, but still it's there in it's kind of on a 10%. It was there in 90% before. I was really very much very much affected, and I'm feeling very much about why I was received, and I'm taking them something like that. But now it was completely fine. But still, whenever I'm asking something, or if I receive something unknowingly, or people giving to me, still I'm saying that I am a responsible person who to repay back. Somewhat it is driving me to force it to something to do, but I do it happily by repaying. I'm very much happy with that. When I was not able to do, I'm totally upset. Still somewhat, or rather one or two cases. So it's hard to say no sometimes. This is what my question. But do you really see any connections, or you can say just say it's apart, it's part from you. It's like it depends on you. It can be like that, but I still see some words from your like your view might trigger me to learn something new or see my other perspective. So that's what I expect.
I think the trick here is to try
Not to
and
answer all things,
see.
just your viewpoint.
Sure, sure, sure. I was just saying that the trick here is to see if you can find that perspective yourself. Then, right? That's the shift that's missing. What I'm saying is this whole business of giving,
Oh,
receiving, and all that has happened. No, the story that you're talking about. I've given something, somebody has to give something back. See, these are all come because of certain social roles that we are playing. In fact, if you look at crowdfunding is not a new concept. If you go to any family function, whether it is puberty function or wedding or anything, people will crowdfund just like that, right? And nobody, usually the idea was that people will put it in an envelope and put it in the bag or something. Now, eventually, over time, what people made that into is they'll put their name, their family's name, their everybody's name, address, school address, phone number, everything, and then they will put money. And these people who are receiving the money should keep tabs of all these people and say, oh, this person paid 5,000 for this function. I have to pay more than this or pay her more than that. Now, it is possible to make a transaction out of anything. These roles are, in my understanding, very short-sighted. What is there really to give and receive? If I really ask, when I was born and when I'm dying, there is nothing in my hands. And I'm not trying to make philosophy. This is the reality of life. That all the things that I have, this kurta that I have, in my life, I look back, this kurta would have stayed with me maybe for 8 to 10 years. And where did this come from? It was once a plant, then somebody made the cotton out of it. People benefited along the way, right? It had its own life cycle. It went to a showroom. I bought it from there. It's with me. It'll be in my cupboard. Then I'll pass it to somebody. Then it'll go here, there. And finally, it'll go back to the earth. Same with you and same with me. Yes. So whose sharing whose stuff? Who does stuff belong to anyway? This is fundamentally, there is nothing of ours to give or receive. If this fundamental thing is understood, this whole giving and receiving nonsense is going to disappear. This, depending on the culture you grew up in, depending on the kind of stories that you've heard, you would have, or I have also built endless layers of nonsense on top of it. That means I'm a responsible person if I give back. There is dignity if I give back more than I receive. These are many stories, depending on cultural context, people have gathered over a period of time. One important way I have learned to see clearly, or I'm still learning to see clearly, is to undo all of these nonsense that I am carrying within myself. Yes? Who said it has to be this way? Why did they say it this way? That itself is a foundation of transaction. If I see that when my mother hugs me, I don't think about, oh, she's given me three hugs, I have to give her 2 hugs pending back. If I do that, the cheapness of that experience itself will make me drop the whole bullshit. If I'm really able to see that I have turned something so beautiful into such a cheap thing, it will drop on its own. It cannot survive inside you if it is seen with such clarity. The problem is it's easier to see if it's such a close relationship. It's a little bit of a distant relationship. Now all these stories are playing out in my life because it's how I've seen and grown, like programmed like a robot all my life. So it takes a certain amount of work to release this programming, for which it's important to learn to see, breathe, and listen. And that's what we're trying to do in the sense. It's not a promotional thing, but eventually the whole unlearning process is about this, that I learn to see my nonsense for what it is, for the garbage that it is. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry, Jane, Judy, who has put all the nonsense in my head without even understanding whether it worked for them or not. Somebody's nonsense that they carried for generations and put in my head as a child. When one of the first things we teach, I've seen people teach a child is, babies, they say, what should you say, uncle or auntie? Say, and then the child has to say, thank you. If the child doesn't say that, the child is usually taught that it's a bad thing to do. You're being a bad kid. You're supposed to say thank you. And the parents apologize in front of the kid and saying, sorry, he or she is still learning. It's interesting if you can build an ability to feel gratitude because you received something. That's what the core essence is. That's what they're trying to teach the child. But they've ended up programming the child like a robot. No wonder we are all afraid that artificial intelligence is coming, because I think as a species we've only become robots, right? So now the artificial intelligence is going to be intelligent also. That is even worse. So I think the whole process for me has been about, how do I unlearn? How do I let go of this nonsense? And one of the important ways of letting go of this nonsense is to be able to see that nonsense for what it is. And it's not easy because it's years and years and years of conditioning. And we have been taught to look around and fill our forms. Everything we look around and do. And that's how everybody is doing it, so it became okay. I don't know if this is not a response to your question, Divakar, but this is what came up for me when you were sharing. I think I'll take one more question and then we'll wrap up. Thank
Kaushik,
you.
this is not a question. Can I share some of my views?
May I know who's speaking?
Shamim, Calicut.
Yes, Shamim.
Basically, with regard to the gift culture, what we have to understand is that we are born into a gift culture, or we start at home in a gift environment. We don't really keep track of how much food we are eating or how much we are getting or should we give back. At least for 10 to 15 years, in Indian scenario at least. The sperm and the egg is a gift. The gift starts from there. But somehow when we grow, as you have been mentioning, the society around us kind of builds a barrier, or we can say the lack of trust. The concept of money comes from a space where there is lack of trust, because we have to keep track of how much we give and how much we get. That's where the concept of money arises. So I think I personally feel that we are born into a gift environment and a gift culture, and somehow when we grow, we kind of forget that. We are taught to forget that. We are taught to be independent, self-sufficient. All these concepts are built into our mind, I think. That's what basically happens, and then we end up being what we are today. So the unlearning should start from there, I guess. And I guess you have been saying that all this time, but just putting my thoughts across. So the concept of money is where there is no trust. So once we build an environment of trust, automatically the concept of money will dilute. It's a good concept. I'm not saying that it's a very bad thing, but it's a good concept where there is lack of trust. Obviously, we have to have something to keep track of, whether it's material good or the work that we do. But that arises from the lack of trust that we have for each other. Where there is a trust, we kind of ignore the concept of money. So what we have to eventually build is that trust, trust between people, connection between people. When there are people who are really close, really connected, the concept of giving and receiving dilutes or kind of moves away. Let's say you're close friends. You share something, you don't really keep track of what you share. It comes natural. So that's where the relationships should build to. That's what I personally feel. That's the 2 cents I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one thing I feel like adding to that is also, I see that there is already a ledger that we have started using, right? That is keeping track of what am I giving, what am I getting. I think we may not be able to throw away that ledger, that accounts book, but at least we should change the usage of the accounts book into simply looking at how much nonsense am I carrying, how much sense am I carrying in every aspect of our life. If this much, if we can change, I think it is natural that I'll end up trusting, because I see that every moment of my life is happening only because I'm in connection with all other life. Without everything else holding me in place, I cannot live. And if I begin to see that trust is a natural way of living because I'm living interdependently, right? And I think there is a shift that we need to do from this ledger to that ledger. And I think that is also one thing we'll be looking at in Listen, Preach and See tomorrow. So if you're there, please do come. tomorrow. I would love to extend this conversation there also and see what experiments can emerge. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, people who have been messaging. I'm using a phone, so I cannot see all the chats at one point. But thank you, everyone, so much for your time. And it's been such a pleasure. Thank you, amazing human being team, for this lovely opportunity. Look forward to meeting you all again sometime soon. Thank you.
Yeah, Kaushik, I'll be adding the chats also to the context. So there is some connection happened like Archana has been, Fozia has been asking for books and Prashant was telling that I'll be supporting her. So gift culture started here itself. So that was really great for the session and I felt that is really good and that was the intention of starting the session as well. And the connections that we bring in and the skills that people come and share here, it's also we are trying to cultivate that gift culture here in what possible ways that I can see at least. So moving forward, we are planning different sessions like this and see if you can able to contribute in a way like that you like to offer any session that you wanted to. So we'll be always having the space and everything is open for this and we are taking this to many people as much as possible so that everybody will come up from the grassroots level. Then if they wanted to learn something or they wanted to see something or whatever experience that they wanted to gain from in their journey, so we wanted to give this platform to experiences. So I request each and everyone here, if you are more interested to share your sessions or share your knowledge or lived experiences, your journey, anything that you wanted to offer, please get in touch with us. And we have shared the link in the chat to get into the group and also the links where you can register for your session and also for the where you can find all the sessions listed along with the speaker names. So get in touch with us anytime that you wanted to. So thank you so much, Kaushik, once again for giving this wonderful session, and it really made a more impact. And also one more chat is like say someone is saying that this is the best time. The 60 to 90 minutes made my time great. Like in the past 1 week, this was the wonderful time that I've had here. So he was talking about that also in the chat, and many people thanked you before leaving the session. So they say that you made their day and you made some wonderful time for them and you gave some insight that is adding more value to them. So these are the chats that I have read on the right side of the session, and yeah, I felt really good connecting with all these points, and I wanted you to know this. So that's the reason I stopped you and I just read all through the chats. So thank you so much once again, and thanks again for each and everyone here who have been into the session and had some good time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for that. My pleasure, and good luck to the wonderful work that you guys are doing. Keep it up.